Hi, my name's Lynn from Just Women Live, and this is
Sophie for Decora Design, but also Just Women Live.
And we're here to talk to Dr. Olivia Hum about vaginal health, which has been so exciting. Good morning.
Because it's such a secretive subject.
Isn't it? It's what women don't talk about.
And we're going to reveal the secrets today.
So, what symptoms do women assume are just part of aging or life when they actually aren't?
So what we see after menopause is that the whole sort of structure of the vulva and vagina changes for some women. And this gradually sort of progresses over life. And so sometimes we see these changes even happening in perimenopause. So just even just for a few days a month as your estrogen level starts dropping.
Yeah.
But what happens after menopause is that there's some real structural changes in the skin and the cells in the vagina and vulva. So often people find that the skin becomes more sensitive, it becomes thinner, it is less stretchy and less moist. So you stop producing, most women will have some kind of vaginal discharge, which is just normal, and that will stop. And for some women, that doesn't really affect them. I mean, it's one of these things that will just carry on through life and often get the changes get worse and worse, but it doesn't really affect them. But for some, it can be a really, really debilitating symptom. So in our clinic, we sometimes see women who can't wear trousers, or they can't ride a bike anymore, or really importantly, that they find it really difficult to have sex. And that is one of the things that we see a lot of. So a lot of women will think it's just normal. Yeah, they think it's just normal. They think it's just part of getting older, but actually there is lots we can do about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I think a lot of people don't realise that a lot of these symptoms are actually treatable. And even within the last sort of 5-10 years, things have become more treatable, and the procedures have changed. I know there's been some procedures that they've changed quite drastically that maybe were publicised as being dangerous, or just thinking ahead, because I've known about the sort of slings that they used to have for bladders, and that just from my own personal experience, there's been some sort of bad experiences, bad press.
From Sophie, what she was saying, why is bladder leakage so common, and why is it still under talked about? I mean, you have these ads on TV all the time for tenors and things like that, and to have those pants and things. But I mean, I can't even control myself, so I don't even wear knickers anymore. It's just easy to wee behind a tree, because seriously, you have a coffee and literally you wee within 20 minutes. So how can people stop it? They used to say, yeah, you have to squeeze and you do your pelvic floor. It doesn't really work, though.
Well, some people, I think,
or they have these balls that go in, which are vibrating machines that go inside the vagina that tightens it. But again, you have to do that every month. You can't. It doesn't.
So there are two different types of bladder problems that women get as they age, and it is often. And again, these are often made worse by menopause. But some of it is aging and is getting older and things changing. So there's stress incontinence, which you were talking about, and that's the kind of when you cough and sneeze, leaking when you cough or sneeze. Really common in anyone who's had a baby, who's been pregnant, or has had a vaginal delivery. That seems to make them worse. But it is, and that often kind of progresses with age. And that's the one that pelvic floor exercises are for. So for that, you can find them online, or go and see a women's health physio. They're the best people to go and see, and they'll teach you how to do them properly. So anyone who does Pilates, there's often a big pelvic floor component in there. So that is stress incontinence. Then the other one that you're talking about is urge incontinence. And urge incontinence is that, oh my God, I need to go for a wee now. I must get there. And what happens is we get this front door key syndrome, which is when people have got their key in the door, they're really desperate to go for a wee, and then they end up leaking a little bit as they run to the toilet, and that's urge incontinence. Many women have a mixed picture, so they have both, but urge incontinence can get gets worse and worse often as you get older. We often see this in older women, and it's really difficult, especially then when your lack of mobility comes in, and that's when we get people being really affected by it. But some of the women we see, literally they can't go out, and when they do go out, they're always having to look around and try and work out where the nearest toilet is. They just don't go to things because they're worried they might not be able to get to a toilet in time. And so there is medication for that kind of incontinence, but we know that. And so there are different types. So there's medication that you can take orally, which essentially what happens when you have urge incontinence is that your bladder sends a message to your brain going, I need to go for a wee, and your brain can't override it anymore. So normally you go, no, it's fine, just wait, we'll be okay. But when you have urgent incontinence, your bladder's like, nope, sorry, I'm just going to go. And what the medications do is they slow down that so that it gives you time, essentially. However, we know that both of those kind of incontinence, and again, the evidence is sort of is not totally clear, but what we see in real life is that it can often really be helped by vaginal estrogen. So we know vaginal estrogen is not HRT. It's putting the estrogen that you're lacking after menopause back into the vulva of the vagina and the bladder. And it's really, really safe. It can be used lifelong, as far as we know.
So that
It reduces things.
that goes up. You have a little tablet.
Yeah, there's a little tablet, there's a little ring that you can put inside the vagina, there's a cream, they're available over the counter. So this stuff is really, really easy to get, and it's pretty safe as far as we're aware. So we're using it a lot more now. We're using it a lot in older women who get sort of recurrent urine infections. But actually, for many women, it's something that they would really, really benefit from.
What's the ring?
So the ring is something called an S-string. So again, it's not really used enough, actually. We use it a lot in our clinic. It's a little flexible ring. It's a bit like putting in a tampon. You sort of squish it down, you put some lube on it and just shove it inside. It stays there for 3 months, but it releases a really high dose of estrogen into the vulva, vagina and bladder. So you don't think about it, you don't feel it, it just sits there. It's really, really useful, because what we do find is that vaginal estrogen is quite fiddly. It's like a little tablet. You have to load it onto a little applicator. You've got arthritis in your hands. You forget it all the time. Everyone forgets, and then it doesn't work. So the great thing about the S-string
from you,
that you can get it prescribed. Your GP might know about them. GPs sort of do sometimes know. They're not used massively often, but the knowledge is going out. When people come and see us privately, we often prescribe them, and then the GP will carry on with the prescription.
Brilliant. What a great idea.
One thing I was told is that a lot of us will go, oh, I must go to the loo now because I'm going to be out for a little while and I might not be able to go. And they say that's one of the worst things you can do. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go in preparation. It can actually make your symptoms worse. Is that true, or have I been misinformed?
I think it's probably a little more complicated. I think what we have, again, I think most women in midlife have to go before they go anywhere, just in case. But we also do find people with a sort of irritable bladder. So an irritable bladder is a sort of combination of some of these things that we've talked about, but also the psychological aspect to it. When you start thinking about things so much that you constantly think, oh my God, do I need a wee now? Do I need a wee? And so you end up constantly going. And so there is with some different types of bladder problems, there is a mind over matter element. And we do this thing called bladder retraining when we get people to try and wait for a bit longer before they go for a wee. But for most women, it's a sort of really complex interaction of the psychological, but there's a lot of physical stuff comes into it as well.
Yeah. And the other thing we haven't touched on is obviously there's other things that as we get older become a problem, but the sensitivity and dryness that happens usually with some people through menopause. So what are the most common reasons why women experience pain or reduced comfort during intimacy, and why is it not always addressed?
So this is it is a massive issue. And if we look at these vulvovaginal symptoms and we look at why women don't go to the doctor to talk about them, and also doctors don't ask. And that is, again, partly because they really haven't been talked about until the last few years. So no one's really talked about them. But when you do start asking, you realise that for a lot of women, this has become a massive issue. And a lot of the women we see have stopped having sex altogether because it was so painful. So what happens is, because the skin is becoming drier with a lack of estrogen and less flexible and less elastic, what happens is when you do have sex on penetration, you get little tears around the entrance of the vagina, which is really painful. And it really hurts.
Doesn't help.
And so lube is really good, and that does sometimes help with some people, but for some people it gets even worse. And what happens, after that, you often develop what we call secondary vaginismus. So vaginismus is when the muscles at the entrance of the vagina just clamp shut, essentially. And what happens is, if your subconscious is intelligent, it thinks, well, this sex stuff, this is painful, I don't want this. And so what happens is you then have a fear response, your pelvic muscles tense, and then that makes it even worse. And so it goes round and round in a circle. So when we see women, which we do a lot of women in clinic with this kind of issue, firstly, it's about putting lots and lots of estrogen back in the skin to make it much more flexible and moist again. But then we also need to undo the psychological aspect of it. So we need to teach your vagina essentially that sex is something fun and nice and not something really painful and really and really nasty. So there's two aspects of the physical and the psychological again.
So your vagina has a memory cell, really. It has memories.
I mean, pain has a memory. So pain is a sensation that you experience in the brain. So it's the brain that is making this happen. We know that you're more likely to get pain in the vulva and vagina because this, again, the lack of estrogen, the changes in the tissue make your nerve endings more sensitive in a horrible way, but they can also make the nice sensations less sensitive. So often women will say, I'm trying to have sex, but I just don't feel it. Like I can't orgasm like I used to. It doesn't feel sensitive down there. And sometimes it actually feels more painful rather than a lack of sensitivity. And again, often we find that really, really improves when we put lots and lots of estrogen back in.
So the same with the clitoris. The clitoris gets smaller and drier and flatter, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so I hear their clinics that they put blood into that. You can
I don't know if there's any evidence for that, but I would say just sticking a bit of estrogen on it is really what's going to help.
Estrogen is the key to anyone after menopause, and when you have a dry vagina or you have very thin walls, basic to build it back up. Again, why wasn't this told about? It's so important.
I think as well.
All the time I used to walk and whistle.
It's been such a taboo subject for so long, and women still find it very hard. And it's funny you touched on that because you said the doctors find it difficult as well. And quite often you'll make an appointment and you don't know which doctor you're going to get. And you're all prepared to say, oh, yes, I'm going to talk all about how I've got this leakage issue or it's painful during sex. And then you get there and you're faced with a doctor and you think, I can't do this, and you kind of almost downplay it, or
So having a private clinic, that must really help. So people feel like they're being listened to, they're getting the better information. How much do you charge for an hour?
So we charge for an hour's appointment is $290, which always sounds, to somebody who comes to the NHS who it just feels like loads. But actually, I think people spend money on their highlights and getting their nails done, and also on buying a lot of things to try and help. And what we often see is people who've tried all sorts of things along the lines of supplements and this and that and the other, and buying things from the internet. Well, actually, it would probably have been a better use of money just to see a specialist, and that's for everything. For skincare or for whatever it happens to be. Sometimes actually it's worth just paying for the time and the
I also
expertise.
think it's the speed of the results as well, because I've had issues before, and I've had issues with sort of incontinence, and I went through the whole process once, had a sling, and then obviously after 10 years it declines and it doesn't work anymore. So then you go to the doctors and you think, okay, things have moved on. Like I said before, things have moved on. There's other options. But I just felt like I had to go through the whole thing all over again. I had to do a diary almost to prove it. And I just thought, I don't want to suffer any longer. I'm here because I'm at the end of my tether. It's taken a lot for me to get here. And so I felt with the NHS, they have a sort of procedure that they have to go through. Because I guess because I don't know why they have to go through a procedure, why it has to take so long. But I do notice as soon as I go private or then instantly the procedure's sped up, or I literally, they take you seriously from the moment you walk in. It's not like I have to prove myself. So I felt for me, yes, it is worth the money because I get the treatment a lot quicker rather than suffering. And struggling and having that embarrassing time.
Exactly. And the NHS is just totally overwhelmed. I can tell you from working in it, like we're literally just firefighting every day. And so something like this, which is a long-term issue, which is not life-threatening, but is incredibly inconvenient and is affecting your quality of life, is not the priority. So the priority is just trying to get the sort of the cancer referrals done, and it's trying to enormous population of elderly people who are living at home on 18 medications and falling over every time they stand up, that sort of. And then we've got all the mental health issues, the kind of adolescent mental health, the people wanting ADHD screening. There's, it is just so busy. And so what we hear all the time from women is that they're just not getting the care that they need. They're not getting someone to really, when we see women in clinic, we're often trying to disentangle this really complex web of what is psychological and what is social and what is because of their long-term medical conditions, and what is lovely, just the luxury of having so much time to be able to cover absolutely everything is brilliant. And I try and give that to my NHS patients, but in 15 minutes it's I just can't get that quality of care. Yes, it's
so
not
what is it?
long.
Is it mylahealth.com, or what is it to start the process with you?
So it's Myla Health, mylahealth.co.uk, and have a look online. And then have a look. We've got lots of reviews on Doctify, and we've got lots of stuff about what we do online.
Yeah.
And then you say you have another clinic as well in Tunbridge Wells through Zoe.
So Zoe, who's the other Myla Health doctor, who's also a menopause specialist and also on the Council of the British Menopause Society. So we both do lots of menopause teaching and education. Right. She is in Tunbridge Wells, Sevenoaks and Orpington and Maidstone, and I'm in Sussex in Haywards Heath and Brighton and Hove, but we also do lots of online work as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's been incredibly helpful. I've learned so much today, and everyone else will. And I hope you get some something back from it. I'm sure people will get in contact, because that's what we were requested to do, to get you on board.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we reach out to those people that maybe have kept silent up until now and say there is help out there, and you don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to be embarrassed. There's plenty of us going through it. And meeting people like you is so approachable as well. You just know that.
That's great. Very matter of fact.
Exactly.
So I'm going to ring up my doctor and get the ring. It's called the ring, is it? The estrogen ring.
The S-string ring, ESTRIN.
Yes. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for today.
Thanks very much.
That's great. Thank you very much for asking me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.